I have millions of dollars but couldn't save you. What can I do without you? Now I'm alone. The person I ever loved and depend on, lean on, is gone. We are off!
David Baker was a man who lived in a world most people could only dream of. He had everything: millions in the bank, towering skyscrapers that bore his name, cars that gleamed under every light, and a jet that could take him anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. To the outside world, he was untouchable, unstoppable, and unshakable. He had built his empire from scratch, climbing every ladder, breaking every ceiling, and proving to everyone, and to himself, that nothing was impossible if he had money. Money could buy influence, respect, comfort, and even happiness, or so he had always believed. Every decision he made, every plan he executed, revolved around one unshakable truth: with enough money, he could control everything in life. And then there was Lena. His wife, his anchor, the only person who could soften the hardness in him. She was not just beautiful, she was intelligent, kind, and patient, a rarity that David had always thought could be bought with attention, gifts, and grand gestures. Yet Lena was different. She loved him not for the empire, not for the millions, not for the luxury that surrounded him, but for the man beneath it all. She believed in the man David could be when he was unafraid to show vulnerability. And for the first time in his life, David found something that money had not created: true love. For years, he had lived under the illusion that money could solve every problem. Illness? He hired the best doctors. Danger? He called the people who could neutralize it. Business failure? He bought his way out. Everything had a price, and he was willing to pay it. He never doubted that this approach would work for every challenge, every obstacle, and every threat. That belief had been the foundation of his life, unshakable and absolute. But life has a way of testing even the strongest beliefs. It began on a morning that should have been ordinary, serene, even beautiful. Lena was radiant, her smile brighter than the sunlight that streamed through their penthouse windows. She had been months into her pregnancy, and today, she felt the first pangs of labor. David was ecstatic. He had waited for this moment with anticipation, imagining the joy of holding their child for the first time. He envisioned the nursery, the celebrations, the perfect family life he had always thought money could enhance but never truly create. At first, it was simple labor. Nothing unusual. Lena and David shared a laugh over small discomforts, and the energy in their apartment was light, filled with hope and excitement. But as the hours passed, the joy slowly transformed into concern. Lena's pain intensified, her breathing grew erratic, and an unusual alarm went off in the minds of the attending midwife. The signs were subtle but alarming, a rare condition that made every second count. She needed immediate medical attention, the kind that could not wait for convenience or scheduling. She needed specialists, surgical tools, and decisions made in split seconds. David's first instinct, the one that had never failed him before, was to solve the problem with money. He called his private jet. He contacted the world's best obstetric surgeons. He arranged for the fastest transport to the nearest hospital capable of handling emergencies of this magnitude. Every person, every machine, every second of logistics was paid for, bought, and arranged. Millions were spent in preparation for what should have been a routine life-saving procedure. He did everything a man with limitless resources could do. He assumed it would work, as it always had. But that day, the rules of life were different. By the time David and Lena reached the hospital, the situation had deteriorated. The monitors beeped urgently. Doctors moved with precision, but the complication was beyond anything expected. Every action taken by the world's best medical team seemed insufficient. David's heart raced. He could feel every passing second as a hammer striking against his chest. For the first time, he realized that money, power, and influence could not change the fundamental truth: some things are simply out of human control. Time became an enemy. David stood outside the operating room, hands clenched, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the door. Lena was inside, fighting with every ounce of strength she had, supported by machines, monitors, and doctors, but the power of wealth, the tools he had always relied on, were useless. He tried to remember every emergency scenario, every plan he had ever made. He tried to buy a solution with connections, speed, and money. None of it mattered. Every dollar he had, every asset, every invention of his wealth was irrelevant. And then, in a moment that would haunt him forever, it was over. Lena did not survive. The world seemed to stop. The vibrant apartment, the towering city, the limitless empire, it all became a meaningless backdrop to the silence of loss. David felt as though the air had been ripped from his lungs. He stumbled to her side, numb, unable to comprehend the magnitude of what had happened. His empire, his millions, his power, all the things that had defined him, were irrelevant. All the strategies, all the plans, all the wealth in the world could not save the one thing he loved most. Grief crashed over him in waves. He could not cry, could not scream, could not even move. He thought back to every time he had believed money could solve a problem. Every failure that had never mattered because he had the resources to cover it now seemed trivial. Now, in the absence of Lena, he understood that life was fragile, precious, and utterly uncontrollable. For days, David wandered through the corridors of his massive home, surrounded by luxury, yet isolated in a grief that money could not soften. Each item, each possession, once a symbol of his achievement, became a stark reminder of emptiness. His cars gleamed, his watches sparkled, his jet waited on the runway, all useless in the face of irreplaceable loss. The realization sank in deeper with each passing day. Money could buy comfort, power, influence, and distraction, but it could not purchase time, love, or life itself. David began to reflect on the choices he had made, the beliefs he had held, and the arrogance that had defined his existence. He realized that his obsession with wealth had created an illusion of control, a false sense of security that life was predictable, manageable, and governable through money alone. He had been blind to the simple, irreplaceable truths that defined human existence, love, mortality, and the unpredictable nature of life. Slowly, he started to change. Not immediately, not easily, but inevitably. He began to use his wealth differently, not to assert power, but to create meaning. He donated to causes that saved lives, supported families who could not afford medical care, and invested in systems that could help others avoid the loss he had endured. Each act was a reminder that while he could never reclaim what was gone, he could honor it by changing how he viewed the world and his role within it. Despite his transformation, the absence of Lena remained. Every morning, he awoke to an empty bed, to silence where laughter once resided, to a mansion that felt cold and uninhabited. He learned, painfully, that some losses could never be repaired, no matter the resources, ingenuity, or influence applied. The world's greatest wealth could not resurrect life. The most powerful empire could not buy love lost. And in that understanding, he discovered humility, sorrow, and a profound appreciation for the intangible. In time, David Baker became known not only as a billionaire but as a man who had faced the ultimate truth, that the things money cannot buy are the most important of all. And though grief never fully left him, it became a guiding force, teaching him to value moments, relationships, and life itself above all else. Money had built his empire. Power had built his name. But love, and the loss of it, had built the man he would become. And he never forgot.